This is Beyond Stars Productions. Hello and welcome to Star Power, the Everything Podcast. This week we're talking Marvel. Joining me today is Andrew Walker.
I am Groot.
Joyful. Grant Jamieson.
Hello there.
And Craib-Leete.
Hello.
So, we'll crack straight into the questions as I usually do, and the first one's kind of the standard icebreaker of all my topics. What got you into Marvel?
I actually thought about this when you first asked me to be on the podcast. I started to think, what was it? And the very first thing that came to my mind was the animated Spider-Man series from the 90s. That was my introduction to the show, or to the whole world of Marvel. I know that scene. Like,
you can't run from me.
You can't escape me. It's honestly, but the funny thing is, right, that came back onto Disney Plus like in the last couple of years, I think it was. And I took a look back at it. Oh my days, the pacing of those episodes is like nothing I've ever seen. They just fly through those storylines constantly. There is consistent lines of dialogue all the time, and I'm just thinking, blooming X, slow down a little bit.
Yeah, that's kind of what's the spectacular rather than that one. Even though obviously I have nostalgia for the original series, because that's also kind of what got me into Marvel. Not just that, but also the whole kind of Marvel universe of the 90s cartoons. So there was Fantastic Four, there was Iron Man, Silver Surfer, and I can't remember if there was another one. It's escaped me right now. I think there was an Avengers one. And yeah, that because those cartoons also introduced me to Daredevil and Punisher and Blade and other kind of characters. So that was kind of my introduction, and still kind of what I would think of first when I think of Marvel.
Well, I'm about to make everyone feel ancient because I was 3 when the first Iron Man came out, and I remember having that on DVD. So the original
I can feel
Iron
my joints already
Ouch.
getting sore.
Oh no!
I remember the original Iron Man and the Incredible Hulk and the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man films, and the first 3 Fox X-Men films. They were kind of what got me into Marvel, as well as the 2000s Fantastic Four films. It's like just kind of the movies of the 2000s, really. I do notice that every movie I mentioned there doesn't go past 2008, so it was kind of just everything up until, I suppose, Iron Man 2 as well. So I suppose just everything up until that really is what got me into Marvel, because I always had those on repeat, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the Incredible Hulk. That was another cartoon. That was also kind of introduction to the Hulk.
Good cartoon.
People forget how much animated stuff that Marvel has done. Like, they have done so much. The amount of times that I would go into HMV and I would see just a Marvel anime. Like, there was a Wolverine anime, and I'm pretty sure there was like an X-Men. No, there was an Iron Man one, I think. But either way, you just see constant Marvel animated shows. And you were mentioning, Kara, about the 2000s Marvel movies. And I do think that that's an underrated time for Marvel movies, because they kind of did a lot of fun stuff. I am a fervent defender of the Fantastic Four movies, as in the first two Fantastic Four movies, especially Rise of the Silver Surfer, because I saw that in the cinema when it came out. And I remember the cinema was packed. Like it was packed watching that movie. And I didn't really know much about Marvel. And I knew the Fantastic Four because I'd seen the movie previously, but I didn't know who Silver Surfer was, and I didn't know who Galactus was. Albeit that is probably it's the movie's biggest flaw is that it does the typical 2000s trope of we've got a big celestial entity, but it can look a bit goofy. How do we translate it? Make it a cloud.
Because that's not goofy at all.
I I do like the 2000s movies because while I'm not the biggest fan of the Fantastic Four ones anymore, the rest of them have kind of stuck with me, and I'm quite a big fan of the rest of them. And I feel like the Spider-Man one specifically, as well as the Hulk movies, were very comic booky. Like they weren't. They were afraid to be comic books in some ways, but like Spider-Man specifically wasn't really at all like that. It does just kind of feel like the original Lee and Ditko comics, you know.
A lot of has been said about how they look dated nowadays, but I
Yeah,
still, people are still talking about them. People are still
yeah,
saying that they're the
Yeah.
pinnacle of Marvel movies.
I think it's also just down to who you get to direct, because a lot of the time
mhm,
you will get directors who are afraid they think that directing a comic book movie might be seen as silly, so they try to make it realistic. Ironically, talking about the Fantastic Four, we have two examples. We've got the 2000s movies, and then we've got Fan Four Stick, which is trying to take the Fantastic Four and make it into this super serious, kind of grim, dark idea, and it just doesn't work. But
no,
and then going back to Spider-Man, there's literally a sequence where Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker is drawing the costume, and it's like panels from a comic book. It literally it's the transitions from one shot to the next and how the style of it evolves and grows,
mhm,
and it's such a Raimi-ism. He loves doing these hyper stylized shots. Remember that shot in Spider-Man 2 where Spider-Man is swinging towards the clock tower where Doc Ock has got Aunt May,
And it
and the
zooms
shot
out. Oh,
it
yeah,
zooms into Spider-Man, but then it zooms out of Doc Ock's eye, and you just
yeah,
think, "Oh my god, what a good shot!" Which is why I love the fact that you know I love the fact that they did bring Sam Raimi in to do Doctor Strange, because I think that
mhm,
Multiverse of Madness, any faults that it has are not to do with Sam Raimi, because the man knew how to
yeah.
direct a comic book movie.
And I think while I wasn't the biggest fan of Multiverse of Madness, I think, like you said, none of it is up to Raimi. I feel like Raimi did what he could, and I mean, I do have faith that Raimi could have made like a perfect Doctor Strange film because you look at
Mm-hmm.
the Evil Dead films. I mean, Army of Darkness is basically just the tone of a Doctor Strange comic, especially from that time period. Um, and I think like the way he translated Spider Man as well was very unapologetically comic booky. I think there were movies like the Fox X-Men films which were so afraid to be a comic book that they poked
what would
fun
you rather
at the
wear?
idea
Yellow
of them wearing
spandex?
Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
This kind of leads me nicely into the next question because it can tie into the movies and the comic runs. Because obviously, we've all got our favorite Marvel stuff. We've all got our least favorite Marvel stuff. But what do you think makes a good Marvel story? And in turn, what can break that story?
I think for me, it's all about emotions. I think a lot of people, why a lot of people kind of have gravitated more towards Marvel, I think, is because of the emotions. It's because at the heart of it, that the X-Men is about prejudice and racism, and you've got Spider-Man that's about the working class and money problems and relationship problems. So I think and the Hulk in itself is all about the emotions of Bruce Banner and how he can never have a normal life again because of his rage. So I think it's down to just go for the emotions and go for the characters. And I think what could break it is if it just doesn't, or it's too afraid to go too into it. For example, I'm not a big fan of Thor: Love and Thunder, and that's just because the emotions are there, but they just don't quite go into it because they're worried that, oh, this here it's an MCU movie, it's got to be funny, it can't go too deep and too dark. And likewise with the that's also a big problem I have with the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. No Way Home kind of rectified a lot of it, but it was this, they didn't want to go into the emotions and the sincerity of it because we have to be fun all the time. And no, you don't.
Yeah, I agree. I think in terms of what makes a good MCU or what makes a good Marvel story, I should say, is like Andrew says, with any kind of story, it's about the emotions, it's about the characters, it's about the themes. And I think that's where a lot of Marvel stories can falter is if they focus too much on legacy and if they focus too much on, cameos and things like that. So again, we talked about Multiverse of Madness there. Multiverse of Madness, I think, works up until you get to the Illuminati and it suddenly becomes a cameo fest and the movie kind of stops. And I think that part of the
Literally,
movie.
because they were told you need to have gaps in between when you're introducing, and here's Captain Carter, and here's Black Bolt, and you've got to have pauses in between so for audience applauses, but it just makes that scene so awkward on rewatch. And same with Deadpool and Wolverine, the bit where
Mhm.
Blade and Elektra and Gambit are all coming in, and it's supposed to be this big, yes, applause, but watching it at home, it's just, can we get on with it,
Yeah.
please?
Whereas, when we talk about movies that worked, again, the Spider-Man movies worked because at its core, they were stories about Peter Parker. They were stories about, his trials, his tribulations, what he was going through. The first movie, the main villain was obviously Green Goblin, and it kind of represented not only his friendship with Harry, but, you know, the fact that Norman was someone that he was potentially looking at as someone who he could like someone that he could see as someone to look up to as a scientist and where he could go. And suddenly you've got this darker half that's willing to kill everyone. I think that Spider-Man 2 has a better grasp on it with Doc Ock because, again, you've got that relationship between Peter and Otto before the incident happens. And then when it does happen, you've still got that baggage, you've still got that weight. And it hits even more by the end of the movie when, you know, Otto finally takes responsibility because Peter talked him down. He didn't fight him at the end, he talked him down. And I think that's what's amazing about that character. And it's why, you know, movies in the MCU, like Captain America, in fact, all the Captain America movies with Steve Rogers, I feel really worked because at its core, it was about a man who wants to do the right thing no matter what. And I think that's incredibly powerful. He's willing, like when the chips are down, he's willing to fight, but he truly believes in right and wrong. He truly believes in the best of people and wants to help people no matter what, even if it goes against the government by the time civil war comes along.
Mm.
So I do think that, what breaks these kinds of stories is when they just forget what makes they try to overcomplicate it. They try to overcomplicate it by throwing in so much incidental stuff like jangling keys in front of the audience, when the audience will come if you just tell an impactful story that has something meaningful to say about the world that it's inhabiting, or even a
Yeah.
reflection of our own.
I think, have you guys seen Thunderbolts yet?
I have.
Yes.
I have not, I'm afraid.
I can't say, but
But
Thunderbolts is a good example
I've
of
heard rave reviews. I've heard rave reviews.
Thunderbolts is a very good example of hitting the emotional beats and still having kind of fun with it. I think Thunderbolts is a very good example. Kara, what about you?
I think, I mean, emotions are a very big part of it. Like, I think if you can nail the emotional moments, you've got something really special and very Marvel. But I feel like what Marvel does best is the. I mostly read Fantastic Four nowadays, but I also read like a lot of Hulk. And I think the kind of wonder that they've built with this like universe is something that's really cool. Like you see it mostly in Fantastic Four comics, and that's kind of why I'm always drawn to them. It's always about exploration, and you find something new. Like the Fantastic Four could go back to the negative zone for the umpteenth time, but maybe last time they found a city of dinosaurs in the negative zone, and this time they find like I read one recently where they found a ship from it was a Spanish ship from when uh, they were like voyaging to the new world and stuff had found its way into the negative zone through like a tear in space, and it's moments like that are so cool, like because Marvel does it really well, where you've got all this like wonder and amazement and larger than life things, but the characters do all feel very grounded and real. Like I don't doubt for a moment that the Fantastic Four aren't real people when they're up against like a 50-foot god, you know, like that's what I love about Marvel. They manage to keep everything grounded while still making it feel huge and larger than life, you know.
Very good answers across the board there. Uh, okay, moving on to our next question then. What we've spoken a lot about the MCU, and we're going to really get into the MCU again because we're going to, and we've again kind of covered a bit of this, but what are your thoughts on how the MCU has brought these comics, these stories to the big screen? Obviously, they don't always stick to their source material, and sometimes that's good, but what are your thoughts?
It's interesting because full cards on the table here. I am not a big comic reader across the board. So like as much as I because even then I've always been more of a DC guy than a Marvel guy. And
Oh,
I know,
you're saying the word.
The
sacrilege to
distinguished
I'm in
say.
the same
competition.
boat. I'm in the same boat. I'm more of a DC person.
The
But that's not
pure
to
So
irony.
say.
that brings an end to the to the Marvel
But the
podcast.
funny thing
Hey,
is,
you're
right?
not the host.
The funny thing is that when it comes to Marvel and look and this does tie into DC as well. When both of them have tried to adapt comics to the big screen as of late, they've been cherry picking moments. They've been cherry picking segments from comics and kind of morphing them into new versions. So, you know, take for example Civil War. Um, because that was the big that I feel like that was one of the bigger moments where it directly shared a title with its comic counterpart, because I don't think up until then there had been like there had been an MCU movie that had looked at an event comic from
Well, there
from the
was Age of
company.
Ultron, but I think
That's
that's
true. You're right. You're right.
but I think more so because at least with Civil War there was kind of the similarities of the story, whereas Age of Ultron is a completely different story.
And that's the thing, sometimes the MCU does use the titles or use the iconography of it to try and entice people into coming to see their movies. But I feel like Civil War was probably one of the ones where they're like, right, we're going to take the actual concept of pitting Cap and Iron Man together against each other, and we're going to run with that storyline, but we're going to change the how and the why, because the actual Civil War comic is so like dense in the amount of characters that feature, every corner of the Marvel universe gets in on this, you know, and but the thing is, the MCU version did the right thing by taking the focus and putting it onto one incident in the movie in Sokovia. Uh, and then, well, Sokovia was obviously from Age of Ultron, but then there was the other event at the start of the movie with Scarlet Witch, where with Frank Grillo's character, I can't remember his name.
Crossbones.
Crossbones, that was
Yeah.
it. Crossbones. But again, it Civil War then focused in on that, and it did take moments, because I know that the scene with Tony, when he gets shown the face of someone who died in Sokovia, I think that's kind of taken from the comic. I think there's a similar scene in the comic where Tony is shown something similar. And then, of course, there is, again, the visual iconography of Iron Man blasting and Captain America blocking it with the shield, literally mimicking the cover of the comic. And that moment is drawn on. You see that moment. And comic book movies have been doing that a lot more recently. In the same year, we had Batman v Superman doing literally the freeze frame of the Dark Knight Returns cover, because obviously that was taking a lot of inspiration from that. But again, it's a lot about taking inspiration, and they've kind of cherry picked some of the best bits and created new stories. And I think that works. I think that works, is understanding what works for movies is different from what works for the comics.
A lot of what comics do, you kind of have to rely on a lot more of a different visual aspect. When it comes to the movies, you need to somewhat ground it a little more. Because comics, they can be like fun, ridiculous, and silly. But with a visual film, you need to ground it more to engage an audience. Because if it was animated, you could do all the fun and goofy stuff. But if you're doing a live action thing, which like the MCU is mostly doing, saying mostly because what if, and what if's great, but it definitely needs a more. I've lost track of where I was going with that. It needs a more kind of balance between the silly and the realistic, and I think that's what it kind of does well. Like you say with cherry picking bits, I think it takes the bits it needs to, makes them somewhat realistic, and balances everything quite smoothly.
Especially when you've got in the reality of film and TV, you have actors' contracts and you have scheduling.
Mm.
So I know you could always say, "Oh, why doesn't Spider-Man show up in Daredevil Born Again?" Or why wasn't Civil War a proper Avengers movie that had everyone? But the reality is, it's a different medium, and sometimes you do have to kind of adapt the stories a little bit. And
Yeah.
also, you don't want too much and get overwhelmed, and then it just turns into, oh, that it was cool when the character showed up and did some banter and did a cool action scene, but I kind of wish they had more of a role in it.
Mm.
I am a big comic fan. I have been reading comics basically since I could read. Um, and honestly, with the Civil War thing, them not adapting Civil War 1-to-1 was completely fine in my books because I don't like the comic. Um, I overall, I don't really care if they don't get the plot of the comic down. Like as long as they get the basic like cliff notes of the
Mhm.
comic, I'm fine. Like Civil War, as long as it's about a political disagreement between Cap and Tony, completely fine. But I like when it comes to getting things 1-to-1, I usually find that quite boring because
Yeah.
I've probably read the comic
And you've
and in
experienced
Civil
the
War's
story already.
yeah, exactly. And in Civil War's case, I don't like the comic, but I focus more on whether or not they translate the character correctly. And with some of my favorites are very hit or miss, Marvel wise. Like the MCU is very hit or miss with how they've adapted Bruce Banner in my books. I really
Mm.
liked him in The Incredible Hulk. I loved Bruce Banner in Avengers. I thought it was okay in Age of Ultron, and then after that, I love Mark Ruffalo, so I'm fine just going to see Mark Ruffalo. But that's kind of all he's been playing, just himself, since Age of Ultron. Um, I don't think it's really felt like Bruce Banner, at least not to me. And I mean,
Mm.
one of my favorite characters from the comics is Hawkeye, and I'm going to keep it positive, so I'm going to stop it there. But
There are
uh,
some feelings.
oh, lots,
Let the
lots.
hate
I
flow.
None of them are good.
I mean, that's fair. With
Um,
with all these topics, there's always going to be good or bad. I can't. Well, I do like having a positive podcast. It is also nice to kind of
yeah.
point out the negative.
Yeah, because I'm in the same
As
boat
well
as
as it,
you
mhm.
with
As well as it.
Hulk.
Oh yeah, no, Hulk. They've definitely. Um, I I'm hoping the rumors of him being in the new Spider-Man movie are true. Because I don't know if you guys have seen those, but those have been circulating. And if they are true, I really hope they start pushing Bruce Banner to be more like how he was before um, the end of Phase 2, uh, or even earlier Phase 1, because that's when I feel he was Bruce Banner.
Mhm.
Um,
I
and mhm.
sorry, you go first.
Oh no, no, you go.
Go
I
on.
was
I was just gonna
basically
say
done.
with the whole multiverse thing going on right now, obviously there's a lot of film right disagreements with Marvel and Universal, but DC have kind of opened the boat with the Batman and Joker to having more standalone stories. I would love
Mhm,
it if we got something like that with Marvel, and
mhm,
we had the MCU, but we can also have other standalone stories like Into the
mhm.
Spider-Verse, for example, or standalone Hulk film, just because I don't want to be stuck with the same interpretations for the rest of eternity. I want to have
Yeah.
the different
Mhm.
interpretations and new artists and new actors coming in and doing their version of it.
I feel like
Mhm,
that kind of leads into a different issue with the MCU, which I think has been talked about before, but it's the idea of if you bring in a creative to make a MCU movie, but you force them to follow strict creative guidelines, i.e., visual styles or character motivations or uh, you know looks and things like that. It does become difficult because every creative is different in their approach. Famous example of this kind of challenge is actually the Hobbit movies. If we go back to the Hobbit movies, originally Guillermo del Toro was going to direct. He had a year and a half of pre-production to get his movies ready. When he dropped out, Peter Jackson had to start from scratch because he wasn't going to make a Guillermo del Toro movie, he was going to make a Peter Jackson movie. So again, in the same way, if you bring in a creative to make a Marvel movie, if you're saying to them, we only want you to make a movie like exactly like this, then it kind of loses the creative voice. It's why I've been happy that we've gotten directors in like Sam Raimi, like Chloe Zhao, and
Mm-hmm.
and I know I haven't seen the Thunderbolts, but again, even just looking from the trailers, from the clips, the visual style is completely different to every other MCU movie that I've seen.
Mm.
It's just the palette seems different, and I think that's what helps those movies to stand out. Because after a while, I feel like early MCU had a lot of different visual styles,
Yeah.
but then when we got to Captain America Civil War, and that movie, which is a great movie, it's a great movie, but then from there, every movie basically kind of followed that visual style. And I feel like,
With Joss Whedon's quippy dialogue, which I really want Marvel to move on from.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
like quippy dialogue can be fun, but again, you need to know when to use it.
Yeah. I actually building off of that point, phase one is my favorite Marvel phase because of how unique each movie feels. You go from, Iron Man 1, or Iron Man 2, rather, because that leads into the next movie I was going to talk about. Iron Man 2, which feels like it has more of like a realistic kind of feel to it, and it's about like overly like. Oh, wait, well, 1 second. Let me think about what Iron Man 2 is about again. It's about
That is the standard response for thinking about Iron Man 2.
Yeah.
it's like far more grounded and focused on the battle between, like, both the legal battle between Hammer Tech and Stark Tech, and also like the actual Iron Man stuff, and Tony's dealing a little bit with his heart condition and everything. And then you go to the next movie, which is Thor, which is very Shakespearean and feels like a Shakespearean drama. There's
Yeah.
lots of Dutch angles and everything. Like there's one every 2 seconds. And then, it feels more dramatic. And then you go to First Avenger, which is very pulpy and very stylized, and you know feels like it feels like the Rocketeer, basically, which makes sense. It's the same director.
Yeah.
And then you go to Avengers, which is what kind of brought about the MCU style.
I feel like it's
that
a real
most movies try to
testament.
follow suit.
It's a real testament to
Mhm.
the creative teams that they had on those first few movies. John Favreau for the Iron Man movies, Louis Leterrier for Incredible Hulk, Kenneth Branagh for Thor, and Joe Johnson for First Avenger, and Joss Whedon for Avengers. Now, obviously, Joss Whedon is a very controversial figure now, given everything
Yeah.
that's come out. But again, when we look back on the style, if we take the style of Avengers and all the first phase MCU movies, they all feel different. They all feel unique, but they all have just they all have managed to connect together in just a really natural way, and
I think
the
the
flow is
problem
so
is
good.
back then, the MCU were the underdogs because, believe it or not, back then Iron Man was a D-list character. I was the only person excited for Iron Man in my class because of the cartoon. Which I guess that's why Kara made me feel even older. But But yeah, they were the underdogs. They had everything rooting against them, and they still kind of, and now they're kind of the top. And I think that's one of the reasons of their kind of the recent kind of flog right now is because they're the top dogs, and you've got this kind of they have this corporate mandate. We want more, 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 and it's kind of
We
unfortunately
want more content.
yeah, and it's kind of hurt their kind of reputation because obviously there's the calls of superhero fatigue and Marvel aren't real films, that sort of thing, and also just their overall how they're feeling and how they're all kind of stretched thin a little bit.
I think people forget that Iron Man was lightning in a bottle. Because remember, Iron Man went into production without a finished script. They were writing the
Yeah.
script and doing improvisation during that production. And I think was it Jeff Bridges who played Obadiah Stane?
Yeah,
Yes, Jeff Bridges basically saying that it was like it was like a student movie with a big budget, um, and I think that that's a real testament to how well that movie managed to pull everything together and just be because again they didn't have the they didn't have a back catalog of movies that they could rely on and say, oh, well, you know what we're doing. No, you had to introduce this world to an audience. And they did it, and they did it phenomenally with that movie.
mm. I think that's sorry, the last point I guess for this question. Going back to what can hurt an MCU film or a Marvel film is also there's why aren't you going into production without a script? I know that it worked for Iron Man, but don't do that all the
Yeah.
time. That shouldn't be the standards. Don't do it until you have a script
Yes.
or have an understanding of what sort of film you're going to take, or even Endgame, which obviously Endgame is Endgame, but they didn't know what the suits were going to look like. So on set, they just had them wear their normal superhero costumes, and then just in post we'll think of something. Or even Spider-Man's costume in Civil War, that's all CGI because Tom
Yeah.
Holland was wearing a practical costume, and then they decided to change their mind and say, "Nah, actually, we're going to go this design." Nah, more just actually know what you're going to do. Pre-production is there for a reason.
Yes.
Okay, throwing. Oh, sorry. No, go ahead.
I was just about to say, um, Marvel. I've heard that with some of the actors, they're only given their lines, and they don't really know, who else is in the scene or what other lines are, and that just feels really weird to me.
Yeah,
I feel like Marvel are far too focused on avoiding leaks and spoilers and all that that it has kind of hurt how they make these films, which is just very weird to me. But
Gwyneth Paltrow didn't know she was in
it's
Spider-Man: Homecoming.
yeah, like it's so weird to me.
Yeah, it's kind of become the thing of like the top high secrecy. We can't have these big things leaked, and it's somewhat damaging to your production. I'd like secrecy is great. We all want to be surprised. A lot of fandoms have issues with secrecy. I'm not looking at any particular one at the moment. Cough, Doctor Who. But I think there needs to be like a better balance between secrecy and actual maintaining your outgoing product. You
Yeah.
don't want it to be like weirdly out all over the place because your actors don't know who they're talking to. You don't want it to feel like a patchwork kind of movie. You want it to feel natural. And I think not being natural is a worry that we're heading towards, especially with the fact that I believe they're doing a lot of this with Secret Wars. And I'm
Yeah,
just like,
just kind of piecing it
oh,
together. Just piecing
And
it together, and it's like,
this
Florence
is
Pugh
gonna be a
said there's no
jigsaw.
script.
Oh my god, they're putting them all in the room and just being like, hey, play with the toys. Make your own secret war. That's why it's secret, there's no plot.
It's like Secret War. It turns out the movie is just, oh, it was a secret all along.
Well, there's concept art of Deadpool and Wolverine that has Nicolas Cage's Ghost Rider and Ben Affleck's Daredevil joining in the fight, of like all the Deadpool variants, and it's like, okay, maybe this was a plan, but what happened?
Mm. Well, to throw a bit of a curveball and maybe try and lean it a bit more to the comics. Sorry, Grant. Um,
I'll be
with
quiet.
with New York being like pretty much a centerpiece of both the MCU and the comic universe, with it being the home of Spidey and all that stuff. What do you think is the main difference between the Marvel New York and other versions of the city in fiction? Or more specifically, what do you think the difference is between the various versions of New York and Marvel, specifically the comics and MCU?
That's a good
Also, thank you,
question.
Kara, for this one.
No, right, no problem.
That's a good question. I think, well, obviously with Marvel, most of it, if not all of it, is set in New York, and New York is kind of the backbone of all the Marvel heroes, especially Hell's Kitchen and Daredevil. And I think I remember reading Stan Lee. He wanted, looking at DC and how it's all set in fictional cities, Gotham, Metropolis. He wanted the readers to feel like, oh yeah, Iron Man lives in New York. This is real places and real part of their characters, makes them kind of feel grounded and have that emotional connection. It's also quite
Mm.
interesting reading when James Gunn said the complete opposite, where he said that he preferred DC because it is this fictional worlds. But yeah, I think it's that's just personal preferences. I don't really know much about other versions of New York and kind of other adaptations, but I can also understand that one issue can be it's the age old, why do the Fantastic Four get Iron Man's help? Because they're in the same place. Does Spider-Man know what's happening, what Daredevil's up to these days? So I guess that can kind of be the little bit of a downfall. Obviously, there is that suspension of disbelief of, oh no, I'm reading a Daredevil story, but it can also lead into the why didn't they just get the Hulk's help or something like that?
Mm.
I think the uh, see, I wrote this question because you asked me to before I knew I was on this podcast. I didn't think about it. I've not
Yeah,
thought of
we
an answer.
we we,
But
we picked you onto the pod like about 45 minutes before the podcast started.
yeah, pretty much. But with Marvel's New York, I think besides the obvious, superheroes being there and stuff, what differentiates it is Marvel's New York oftentimes feel like it's treated as its own little unique ecosystem. Like, you watch shows like Law and Order and stuff, which are primarily set in New York, and it does feel like, New York City, but you then go to Marvel and it does feel like its own ecosystem. It feels like
Mm.
you can't take Spider-Man and move him to Edinburgh. You can't do that because that completely changes who that character is, the types of people that are in his side cast.
It's ironic because they're filming the new Spider-Man film in Glasgow next month.
Yeah, they are. um, which I mean, I I would like to see what a Spider-Man who found his footing in Glasgow would look like, but because it would look very different from the one we have now. But
Less
Doc Ock. All right,
swinging.
Doc Ock. You're being a wee belter.
Apologies
good
to anyone
lord.
who can't understand the Scottish accent. This is going to be a fun one for you.
Oh yeah, no, I've been trying to tame my accent a little bit just in case.
Well, you
But
know what I say? Stuff it. Let's go full Scottish.
oh, okay, right.
Let's
Well,
go
I think
full.
the main thing that differentiates Marvel's New York from real New York is it just kind of feels like its own little pocket world. When you're reading Marvel comics, at least for me, I don't often question why is Iron Man not helping the Fantastic Four here, because I feel like New York's that big. He's probably just off in another part of it. If he's even in New York, he might be in like Miami or something that week. But New York is such a big place, and each comic kind of Marvel treats New York in a very unique way, and I feel like each comic within Marvel has its own unique vision for what New York looks like. Like I'm not reading a Punisher comic and going, "Damn, the Fantastic Four should stop this guy," because in Punisher comics, New York is like it's like hell. Everything's like dark and gritty, and like everyone's getting their heads blown off and stuff by shotguns, and it's like I don't want to see the Fantastic Four here. you know. And then you go to the Fantastic Four, and it's like, I mean, a good example is an issue of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby's Fantastic Four run, where Namor and Doctor Doom basically strap rockets to the Baxter building and have it take off. So this entire building leaves New York and goes into the atmosphere, and it's like just insane, you know. Basically, New York just feels like its own unique world. It doesn't feel like real world New York because it's Marvel New York, and it just has its own style and its own vibe to it that changes from character to character. You know?
Have any of you guys been to New York? Because I haven't.
Yeah.
I'd love to one day.
I would love to, but alas, I'm a trans woman and I don't want to go to America for a bit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's fair.
That's fair.
I've never been to America.
I went last year for my birthday. It was pretty
Okay,
good.
so did you go down to some of the locations?
I mean, I saw some of the sites, and I'll admit, most of the film locations I went to in New York were related to the Christopher Reeve Superman films because
Okay.
the first one especially is my favorite film. So
Nice.
yeah, most of it was related to that. I did, however, one day when I was out, walk past, and I took a photo of it. Um, in the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man film, where Uncle Ben gets shot and he's bleeding out on the concrete,
Yeah.
I took a photo of that exact bit of pavement because I just walked past it and I was like, "Oh, that's kind of cool." There's
That is cool.
there's no marker or anything, but I walked past the library and I was like, I know that place, and then I look at the concrete and I'm like, it must have
This is
been
where
right
Uncle
here he
Ben
got
died.
shot. This is where Uncle Ben died. I did
And,
see
and
that.
round the corner is where the other Uncle Ben got shot.
Oh, I ate at Joe's Pizza as well
Nice.
from Spider-Man 2.
Nice.
Great pizza. Great pizza.
I could just imagine like going around. It's not the big locations. It's there's a bridge where Gwen Stacy's neck got snapped, and
I feel like give it a few years. Give it a few years time, and in New York you'll get guided walking tours just called the Uncle Ben Memorial Tours. So it's all the different locations where different versions of Uncle Ben have snuffed it. So, but
it's a shame
obviously-
Gotham City's not a real place. Well, kind of. It's kind of a shithole. But just imagine there being a guided tour of every Thomas and Martha Wayne got shot.
I think as well that when it comes to New York, because obviously again, I don't know what it's like in the comics, but having seen the way that different creatives have approached New York, like within the different movies and TV shows. So there's that scene in the first Spider-Man when on the bridge where after the Green Goblin tries to kill Peter and Mary Jane uh, and the cable car full of civilians, you've got that scene of the New York citizens standing up against the Green
Mhm.
Goblin, and I think that's such a lovely scene to have, and especially since this was a very post 9/11 time that
Mm.
you felt that this was about bringing them together, this community of people that had gone through a kind of shared event and kind of banding together against a threat to them, which I thought, you know, especially at that time, it's really nice to see that kind of camaraderie on screen, and you see it again in Spider-Man 2 when you've got the train filled with civilians who then also find out who Peter is. That Spider-Man is Peter Parker, and they say he's just a kid, and it's like, and then they stand in front of Doc Ock and protect Peter, and I think scenes like that really help to humanize New York as a city, which I think is what is really important if you've got a city. The city itself can feel like a character. It's like, again,
Mm.
with DC, you've got cities like Metropolis and Gotham. They feel like characters in and of themselves, especially something like Gotham. Um,
Yeah.
but again, you look at the Daredevil TV series, or well, hell, all of the Netflix series. Actually, I feel like each one of them kind of takes New York in a different light. Daredevil specifically targets more of like a seedy underworld, and the
Yeah.
way that it's shot and the way that it's portrayed, and it's just so beautiful. It's nothing like the high rises and the beautiful architecture, modern architecture in the center of the city. It's
Mm.
just this this place called Hell's Kitchen, and it's grubby, it's dingy, it's filled with crime and corruption, and I just think, oh, it's so well done, and I think it's nice having different versions of New York visible, but I think it's also important for creatives to just interpret it in their own way for the needs of the story. Because if they want it to be the seedy underworld, they can do it that way. If they want it to be this glistening metropolis, they can do it that way. New York is a very versatile city that it can do that.
This also kind of leads us on perfectly to the next and final question before we get to the favorites round. Another one from Cara before we knew that Cara was going to be on the pod. Um, do you prefer when Marvel is more an alternate history with some changes from our world, like number of the comics do, or do you prefer the more world outside the window approach that something like the MCU takes?
I think the ironic thing is the MCU has kind of become that because you had the snap in Infinity War, and post Endgame has been kind of the snap has been this historic event
Yeah,
that is the kind of the backbone of everything and everything since.
yeah.
Um, to be honest, I like both. I think there's merit to both. For
I feel
me
like it's
personally, yeah, probably an alternative history.
Mhm. I feel like it's interesting because with any kind of story, they will approach history as and when it kind of occurs. So they might do an alternative history for certain things, but then do something that actually relates to a modern day incident, whether it be it directly or indirectly. Um, but I think that if you're telling, if I was to go with my own personal like preference, I would say that maybe an alternate history is more interesting because it's not to say that you cannot take elements from our history, because I mean, let's face it, one of the first Captain America comics is him punching Hitler, which great cover.
Of
And
course.
I think that, so it's clear that Marvel have done our history, but also they've not looked at, in real history, there wasn't a secret sect of the Nazis called Hydra with a leader called the Red Skull. So they've taken their
Yeah.
own thing and ran with it whilst also adapting elements of the World War II storyline. So I feel like Marvel likes to kind of, again, like we were talking about earlier, cherry pick elements and kind of morph them into storylines that
Mhm.
work. And I think that's a great sign of creativity, being able to take
Mhm.
established elements but rework it into your own style, your own methods, and tell these original stories whilst also commenting on the world that we live in. Hence why, uh, X-Men being about prejudice, Stanley wanting to create Black Panther to have more representation within the Marvel universe, things like that.
I mean, with the alternate history thing, I do kind of like it when Marvel changes things from our world. Like one of my favorite examples in the comics is Adolf Hitler was burned alive by the original robotic Human Torch, and his sidekick. That's how World War II ended. They burned Hitler alive, which I think is quite cool. Um, but see, I like it when they take our history and twist it and ingrain superheroes into it. I feel like DC does it more than Marvel does, but the
Mm.
way Marvel does it is still quite fun and quite exciting, and I always like to see what they've changed, Um, and yeah, that's all I've really got to say on this one.
That's fair enough. That leads us nicely on to a little kind of section of the questions, which are 5 questions, just rapid fire, called the favorites. So we'll start off with the obvious two. Favorite hero.
Ooh.
Spider-Man, always going to be Spider-Man. Runner-up would be Hulk or Daredevil, but Spider-Man's the reason I'm a Marvel fan. Spider-Man 2 is one of the films that could really kind of, you could say, changed my life because that led me to wanting to learn a lot about film production, which led to college, which led me to meet Grant Starr. So yeah, I think, and also just in general, you've got some of the great storylines, villains, movies, into the Spider Verse. So yeah, Spider Man.
I've got to go with Spider-Man as well. Um, he's who introduced me to Marvel. He got me into it. He was one of the first superheroes that I met as a kid. So if you had to point a gun at my head and say, who is your favorite Marvel hero? It has to be Spider-Man.
Fair, fair. Cara?
um, my I can't say the entire Fantastic Four, so I think if I had to narrow it to one character, probably Emma Frost, because
Nice.
Interesting.
I I just think she's so interesting, and I love tracking her redemption arc across the comics. You see her start as a villain in the 1980s, and she slowly grows into a good person over the course of her entire comic history, honestly. And nowadays, she's a proper superhero, and I just find it so interesting. And I love just kind of her entire story. Honestly, I've read a lot of her comics. Her solo run from the 2000s is very good at showing her history and showing why she is the way she is. And you know, she's I I see people a lot, like when she got added to Marvel Rivals not long ago. I saw a lot of people complaining about how sexualized she was, which I feel like is such a odd thing to complain about with Emma Frost, because she is a very sexualized character, but the reason she is that is because that's how the character is. Like, she uses that as a way to, I suppose, get what she wants. You look at her original outfit was a dominatrix outfit, pretty much. So you look at that, and you know, it's just inherently part of her character. It's not there to, I suppose, appeal to men. It's more to show that being sexualized isn't inherently bad. It can be a good thing.
Mm.
And I also just feel like, I mean, when in a lot of comics nowadays, she's a massive advocate for trans rights and everything, and I just think that's very nice, and I like seeing that as a trans person myself.
What do you think of
Uh,
adaptations of Emma Frost, like in First
I don't
Class?
want to talk about it.
Okay.
First class, good actress, great actress. Most of the writing I'm not a fan of.
Okay.
However, the cartoons do her well. I like how she is in Wolverine and the X-Men. That's very good.
Okay.
Okay, my turn, I guess, because this is the bit where I can participate. I mean, I could participate in the others, but you guys just went off. I was like, okay, do the podcast for me. Um,
Well,
uh,
that's why we have to go back to all the questions and get your input on the wall. Come on, rapid fire.
my favorite hero. Um, I'm torn between Captain Marvel because Carol Danvers, my love, my wife, my everything. But I'm also torn between her and Spider-Gwen because of Across the Spider-Verse and the headcanon that Spider-Gwen's trans, which I love. And I also just love her character. I've been really reading into the comic run of her on Marvel Unlimited, and it's just been so much fun seeing this alternate history of everything. Um, so yeah, it's a toss-up between them, but I'm also going to give up an honorable shout to Jeff the Land Shark.
Hmm.
Yeah.
The best boy. Also, Jack, if you're listening, leave my boy alone. Anyway, now we've done the heroes. Favorite villain?
So I actually kind of want to throw a little curveball and say Kilgrave, the Purple Man.
Ooh,
And this is entirely down to the Jessica Jones TV series, is
Jessica.
is also down to the phenomenal performance by David Tennant, because I feel like he is so good in that role, and he's so slimy and narcissistic and just vile. And I think that he's that's what I like about Kilgrave as a villain. He's not someone that you want redemption for. He is someone who is absolutely vile, but is so fascinating to watch
Hmm.
in every scene. And I think that he is he was only in it for one season, but he is still easily one of the best MCU villains. Like, to me, he is top tier MCU villain.
Nice. I do love Kilgrave. I love the episode where they captured him, and
Yeah.
you kind of that episode you could think, okay, is there something to redeem? And the answer is also like, no, we should kill this guy. Phenomenal performance. I love how like with villains that there's always this call of, oh, we need to kind of ground the villains and get their motivations, which of course you do. I like villains like Magneto, uh, who we get to see his perspective, and we can either agree or disagree. But I also like villains like Kilgrave, who are just evil. In terms of my favorite, I think I'm gonna go with Sabretooth because I just love the relation, the kind of dynamic between Sabretooth and Wolverine, the sheer hatred, and how you are never going to get anyone who hates each other more than these two. And I just think that's so fun to read and watch.
I think my favorite villain. I see. I always struggle when I'm asked this question because I really don't know. I think my favorite Marvel villain might have to be. I'm just gonna have to say Doctor Doom. I I
Nice.
think Doctor Doom is my favorite Marvel villain because, well, yes, he's primarily a Fantastic Four villain. Over the decades, he's just kind of morphed into an everyone villain. Everyone has fought this guy, and it's because he's so interesting and so cool. You know, you've got like the fact that, I mean, his magical powers, that those are so cool, and I'm so mad that every live action adaptation leaves them out. The fact that he knows magic is awesome, and his technology is so cool, and his rivalry with Reed Richards is probably my favorite rivalry in the entirety of Marvel. Besides maybe the Thing and the Hulk, I think their rivalry is very good. Um, but yeah, you know, Doom is just the guy.
Dare I ask what your thoughts are on Doomsday?
Don't, don't, oh, don't. Definitely don't. I think you're going to ask what the thoughts were on the previous live action
I
Dooms,
mean,
but
sure, that too, but when Robert Downey
either
Jr.,
way,
bless
I
him,
don't. I don't want to talk about it. I have nothing nice to say.
it's the fact that Robert Downey Jr. said, "Okay, this time we're gonna get Doctor Doom right," and you failed the first hurdle.
This time we're gonna get Doctor Doom right, so we're casting a white guy. It's like, no,
Yeah,
no,
and the thing
Doom
is,
is Romani.
yeah,
Yeah.
and someone you could say, "Oh, name a Romani actor." Name a movie Chris Hemsworth is in before Thor, except 5 minutes in Star Trek.
You
Exactly.
search for these actors, you find them.
But
Yes.
let's not
The
underestimate Sarah Finn is talented. I'm sure she could have managed.
And also,
Yeah.
let's remember that in the last couple of, even this year alone, actually, we've seen breakout performances coming everywhere
Mhm.
just because you found these actors. You know, I mean, the biggest one for
Yeah.
this year was the star of Adolescence, his very first TV role.
Mhm.
And, this is,
Mhm.
he comes out with this absolutely incredible performance.
Yeah.
So you can find these new actors that may not have done much work and
Mhm.
especially Romani actors for someone like Doctor Doom.
I mean,
Mhm.
Kara, look at your favorite film, Superman, where Christopher Reeve is third
Yeah.
billing.
Yep. Christopher Reeve was, I don't want to say found off the street because he did audition, but like they didn't even know who he was when he first became Superman. You know, that was his breakthrough. And I mean, I'm trying to think. I mean, Chris Hemsworth was mentioned. Thor built his career, you know, and I think especially with this is more like a larger criticism of the MCU, but how they've treated Romani characters in the past, as well as Jewish characters, they don't have a good track record. And I wish Doom was the one to fix that, or at least show that Marvel were changing in some way. But they're using Doom, my favorite villain, as nostalgia bait, and I'm not happy about it.
It goes back to content.
Yeah, and
Oh.
I can't
it,
believe that they've killed my hype for an Avengers movie instantly.
it won't be, but I'm really hoping that like they've set up this whole thing of, oh, it's Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom, and they're gonna do a massive rug pull.
Mhm.
I really hope they do.
If
Because
they can at
it
least
feels so fan wanky otherwise.
if they can
But
at least get the relationship between Pedro Pascal's Reed Richards and Downey Jr., I will still hate the casting, but at least that could make or break the film.
oh, Pedro Pascal can do anything. I love that
Uh,
man.
yeah,
That man can
absolutely.
do many things,
We
But
stand Pedro
included.
Pascal.
last point of before Star moves us on, but I just want to say, so Downey Jr. is Doom. What does that mean to Pedro's Reed Richards? Because it's all like, oh my god, he looks like Tony Stark. Yeah, but Reed Richards doesn't give a shit.
You
Reed
see,
Richards.
what happens is Doctor Doom pulls out a golf club.
Oh,
Sorry, Carl, you
And
were saying?
also, this Reed Richards doesn't know who Tony Stark is.
exactly.
Exactly.
Like,
Oh,
he's, I cannot wait for that helmet to come off and all the Avengers to go, oh my god, it's Tony Stark, and the Fantastic Four to just go, who?
Who?
It's gonna be
Fucking-
like Star Trek Into Darkness, where Benedict
oh yeah.
Cumberbatch, spoiler alerts, Benedict Cumberbatch announces himself, I am Khan. And it's treated as this moment. But
Oh
then you
my god.
realize, wait a minute, this version of Kirk doesn't know who he is.
Yeah,
it's
it's
also
like,
very funny you're bringing that up as an example because it's also a very bad miscasting because it's another white
yes,
guy.
it's another white guy.
Um, Bringing this back to favorite villains. I'm not sure which one my favorite is because all the villains I really enjoy have kind of been redeemed every so often. So I'm like, I wanted to say Winter Soldier, but I love Bucky now. Bucky's a good guy now. He's a hero now. I want to say Loki, and Loki's a good guy now. Um, I think I'm going to go for Doc Ock because I love how I just finished the new Spider-Man series, the technically MCU one, the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. I love Doc Ock in that. He's so camp. But I also love him in the two the Spider-Man games,
Yes, yes. Honestly, that
especially the recent ones because they're just beautiful storytelling.
the Spider-Man PS4 is easily one of the best Spider-Man stories. Insomniac really hit a home run with those games, both of them. In fact, all three of them with
And
Miles
even
Morales as well.
into the Spider Verse, you had a female Doc Ock, and it didn't
Yeah.
feel like it
Yeah,
just felt like a
Olivia.
yeah. You had this also
Talking of those films, shout out to the Spot. The Spot's a really fucking good villain.
Yeah,
yes. Oh, I love how the fact that
Yes.
they have this. I love this motive of this villain that is like, wait, I am not a villain of the week. I'm gonna show you. And now he's gonna bring the end of the universe.
Man hit
A D-lister wanting to be an A-lister.
Yeah, I
man
love
hit with
that.
bagel destroys the universe. Okay. Let's get on with our list. We are on to, you know what? Actually, before we move on to the next favorite, I'm going to throw another favorite in because I feel stupid that I didn't include this favorite team. Cara, just say it. I know what you're going to say.
I you can guess. Fantastic Four. X-Men are a close second though.
Okay, now you have to sing the Fantastic Four theme tune from the 90s cartoon.
No one wants to hear that.
I mean, we all would know Spider-Man, Spider-Man, but does
Spider-Man.
anyone here know when Captain America throws his mighty
With his
shield?
Oh, yeah.
shield.
No,
Yeah.
no.
If
Out
I,
of all those 60s cartoons, the Hulk theme song or the Iron Man theme song are the best ones, in my opinion.
I know the Captain America one too well from the How It Should Have Ended cartoons.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What about you two? What's your favorite team?
probably got to be the Avengers. Like the original first team, I think, just because it was a small team, but and they clashed, but they were able to work through it and work together. And I think that that's what I kind of love about that. Like when you say Avengers, it's kind of cheap because you're like, oh, it includes everybody. And in the Marvel comics, most teams are the Avengers. Even the X-Men were Avengers at some points. So because I remember Beast was like a mainstay in the Avengers comics for a time. So it's like it's kind of chopping and changing. But I think for me, if I'm again looking at kind of like the movies and things like that, I have to kind of look at like that original team of Avengers, because they were the ones that not only had the first movie, but they mainly headlined Endgame as well.
For me, I think I'm going to go with the X-Men, specifically from the 90s cartoon, just because, yeah, okay, nostalgia, but also they're great characters, and seeing them again in the revival was just really, it was a lot of fun. I was worried that that wasn't going to work because time has passed, and I am I'm a very firm believer of characters need to move forwards, and we shouldn't always be looking back. X-Men 97 is really damn good. But I'm also going to give a shout out to Guardians of the Galaxy, specifically from the MCU movies.
I was gonna say, and the Guardians is my vote. I think I love the
Yeah,
Guardians so much. I think that might change to Fantastic Four when the movie comes out soon. Um, but that might also just
Join
be because
me.
Pedro. Like you're joining because you know and love the characters. I'm joining because
Pedro
the
Pascal.
hottest man on the planet now has stretchy abilities, and I want to see what he can do.
Oh Jesus.
Um,
Oh,
anyway, Guardians of the Galaxy is really great. I'm trying to think if there's anyone else I'd probably go for. I think it would just be Guardians, specifically the MCU version.
But what about
Really.
Thunderbolts?
Oh, Thunderbolts is close. I think I need to still warm up to some of them. I'm still struggling with liking Walker
Mhm.
Fair,
because of what they
fair.
did with him in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It's very They do a good job with him in Thunderbolts, but it's very hard to make me like him after seeing what he did in Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
see, I like John Walker in the MCU because he's such a loser. Like
He is such a loser.
that is what makes him work for me. They never portray like he is a very strong character. Like there is lots of emotion there, especially like even as far back as Falcon Winter Soldier. There's lots of emotion there and lots of like good storytelling that makes you really feel for him. But he's also like the biggest loser on the planet, and that's what
And
Yeah.
a
makes him work
bit
for
of a
me.
dick.
And a bit of a dick. You're not really meant to like him, and that's why I like him.
That's kind of the thing. Like from the word go, he just looks like imitation Captain America, and that's kind of the point. Is that throughout that show, he's constantly being compared to Captain America, like
Mhm,
Steve Rogers, and being told that he's not really Captain America. And I
mhm,
think that because he's so far removed from the reality of what it was to be Captain America,
mhm.
that it just ate at him more and more and more and made him wanting to prove himself. That's why Sam is always such a great um a great shield bearer for the mantle of Captain America because he understood the responsibility of what it meant to be Captain America. And that was what the
Yeah.
whole Falcon and Winter Soldier series was about, was learning to take on that mantle and,
Mhm.
you know, go from there and what the mantle of Captain America means.
Hmm.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
also going to give a shout out to the Defenders, specifically
Ah,
Oh,
yeah.
they're cool.
Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and Iron
Mhm.
Fist.
I'm going to pull a plug on just giving shout outs because we're going to start naming all the bloody teams in
Yeah.
the Marvel Universe now. And we need to keep moving on. We're going to move on to, again, sorry, Grant, favorite comic run.
That's all right. I'll just listen.
Well, Grant, it's been nice hearing from you, but I think that's a wrap on you.
Oh, no, no, no. But he needs to come back for the next one. Don't worry. But favorite comic run. Well, I'm going to take the first one on it because I'm just going to say the first run of Spider-Gwen. I think it's a phenomenal setup. I love the characters. I love what they do with all the different things. I love how they've got a very different portrayal of Daredevil because it's not Daredevil. I won't go into it in case someone wants to read into it, but it's a very, very fun read on very alternative take on such a beloved character.
Yeah.
Also,
At,
Spider-Gwen.
at the moment, I'm really enjoying the new Ultimate Spider-Man, where it's in this
Mhm.
alternative universe where he is an adult, but he's not Spider-Man yet until he's an adult, but he's married with MJ and he's got kids. I think that's a really fun, unique take on Spider-Man, but still Spider-Man. So I'm
Mhm.
really enjoying that right now.
I think my favorite Marvel run, surprisingly, is not a Fantastic Four run. Um, Matt Fraction's Hawkeye. I read
Good
it for the first time in
choice.
high school, and I have read it umpteen times since. I love it so much, and Clint is one of my favorite characters from Marvel because of that run, really. And while I have found other great content with him outside of that run, I I just love how Fraction's Hawkeye really portrays him, and it's different from a lot of other Hawkeye comics because Hawkeye didn't really have a side cast before that. Like there was never a consistent side cast because most of his stuff was on the Avengers. He had solo stuff here and there, and he did have like side characters, but they were all very, you know, related to that run. And then, at least from what I've read, and then you've got Matt Fraction's run, which became the status quo for Hawkeye for the few years after it. And I love it. I think it's such a good run, and it's the style is just amazing, and it really did make Clint one of my favorite characters because of how he's portrayed in that run.
Right. Well, okay, Grant, you can come back in now because we're going to move on
Yay.
to favorite MCU movie.
Okay. So I actually was thinking about this one quite a lot because I thought about you know, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. That was probably one of my recent favorites. Spider-Man No Way Home, for obvious reasons. It was this culmination not just of the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, but of the entire Sony Spider-Man movies, and somehow managed to actually work and not feel completely, uh, you know, just fan servicey.
Mm.
But I actually decided to highlight a movie that not many people talk about, and that's Eternals. And the
Okay.
reason being was I remember watching Eternals in the cinema because I had actually seen Chloe Zhao's previous movie, Nomadland, and I adored that movie. It was a slow burn movie, but I loved it. I thought that it was so like meditative and so like just personal, and I just I loved it. I just really enjoyed it. And watching Eternals, you can see that style because it's much more of a character piece. It's so much of a character piece, and it follows like all these eternal beings that, and we see their lives throughout history. And it's a concept that I've always loved. I've loved having Eternals living through history and them seeing events and uh coexisting alongside humanity as it evolves and changes and grows and moves on. And I just love the overall vibe of that movie. I just love how it feels, and I love the cast. I think they're all great. And yeah, I feel like it's a movie that doesn't get enough love because it's not as action driven as other MCU movies.
Hmm.
And it's funny, right? I was talking to a family member who, is a big Marvel fan, but mainly into the movies, and big MCU fan, and but also quite a casual fan. And I was thinking, oh, I bet you they won't like Eternals. No, they really enjoyed Eternals, which was surprising. And it just kind of made me think about it and be like, actually, yeah, it's a really underrated movie in the MCU. And I kind of want just to highlight it, really.
No, fair play. It is. I personally really, really enjoy Eternals. I completely agree as a character piece, and I love that for. I think that's what makes it stand out because it's not the. I don't want to say slot, but it's kind of generic Marvel movies we've been getting some low frequency. It's been we get a good hit and then we get a few standard, and I still love the standards, but I'm a clapping seal as named by Jack Alexander. So I'll take most things. What about you, Andrew? Have you answered?
No, yeah, I think in terms of MCU, I'm going to go with Guardians. I know that that's the fan favorite, but it's the one that I think I find myself rewatching or wanting to rewatch the most.
Mm,
And in terms of, I'll say, I know it's not really the question, but underrated, I would probably say either Shang-Chi or Black
Mm,
Panther Wakanda Forever.
yeah, both those two are great.
Oh, my favorite Marvel movie overall, MCU and otherwise, is Spider-Man 2, though.
fair.
Um, Currently, my favorite MCU film is Ant-Man, the first one.
Oh,
Um, but I'm fully expecting it to be First Steps when that comes out. um,
I can't wait for it.
Me neither. I am so excited. Um, but I currently it's Ant Man. I love it. I love Scott a lot. Scott Lang was for a long time my favorite MCU character. I own basically every Funko Pop, bar a few. Like I was a crazed MCU Scott fan, um, but I do quite like um, the first one. I haven't seen Quantumania, but I watched Ant Man and the Wasp, and I did like it at first, but every time I've watched it since, I've liked it less and less. Um, but the first one, I never get tired of that. That is amazing.
Okay. Next and final one. Uh, favorite writer, comics or movies, just overall.
I had to think about this. I really like Mark Wade, but I think I'm also gonna go with now. Just I keep mixing the his names around. So yeah, there we go. Brian Michael Bendis. I'm gonna go with that because Ultimate Spider-Man was also one of the kind of first Marvel comic book runs, and obviously I'm a 90s kid, so Ultimate Spider-Man was kind of the Spider-Man at that point. And I just love
Mhm.
how it kind of he took Spider-Man and the rest of the Marvel universe, but kind of it modernized it, but didn't change it too much. It still felt like Spider-Man, and I kind of like the serialization of it all as well.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that so again, because comics aren't my thing, so I decided to look at the movies. And and James Gunn is definitely one of them because obviously he wrote the three Guardians movies. And I do love all of those movies. Shout out to James Gunn. But I actually wanted to look back at one of the movies that got me into the MCU, which was the Captain America movies. So I looked up the writers for that, who were Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, and they didn't just write the first Avenger; they wrote the entire trilogy for Steve Rogers, as well as Infinity War and Endgame. So that five-movie run, I feel they did such a good job of tying together all those characters, and especially for Steve Rogers. I feel like you can tell that they love writing for Cap, and I always say that Captain America: The First Avenger is one of the best superhero movies because
Mhm.
again, it's just so quintessentially Captain America, and it just feels like like I think you were saying earlier, Kara, very pulpy,
Mhm.
and it's and like the Rocketeer, obviously because of Joe Johnson, and it's just, and I think that those writers really captured that and managed to then dive into the deeper themes in the next two movies, and then had the bombast with the last two Avengers movies. So I think they really do deserve a shout out.
Definitely. I love how they made sure every character had their moment, even though you had to juggle all of these characters in the Avengers movies and Civil War, but every character had a defining moment, and that's a huge testament to that.
Yeah. Especially love Captain America the Winter Soldier. Shout out to that being the Marvel film that I've seen the most in cinemas, having gone back about 14 times.
Uh,
Jesus.
Gotta pump those
Listen,
numbers up. Those are rookie numbers.
I'm pretty sure it was your fault I got obsessed with Captain America because you got me into DC. And
Yeah.
then I spiraled into superheroes and I went to the Avengers one day and I was like, fuck. Uh,
well, the first time I met you was at a Comic Con, and you were as Captain America.
yeah, now not much has changed. I've just lammed the shield up a bit. Okay, Kara, how about you?
um, I think. I mean, my favorite comic writer overall is Mark Waid, which Andrew mentioned. Um, I just, while I do prefer his work at DC, his work at Marvel is just as good, and I think just yeah, his Fantastic Four is amazing, and I I love Mark Waid. I think he gets what I like about comics the best out of any writer. I think so. I'm always willing to read something he's written. Um, and the only one that comes close, I think, I quite like Chris Claremont as well, and he comes quite close. But that's me.
Fair play. Right. Well, that brings us on to our last two sections of the pod. We're on to the audience section. For the audience section, what I do is I obviously you're all part of the Star Power server. Link in the description. What I do is I read the first one and then I get you the guests to read the other ones out. Um, Cara, seeing as you're here, you'll be reading your one. So the question this week was, what's your dream story for your favorite Marvel character? And if it already exists, what story is it? Haley Ducky Fairy answers with Loki has always been my favorite Marvel character. I prefer his Norse stories of him, the funniest where I can't pronounce the loads in Norse places, so please forgive me. Jotun? Jotun? I don't know.
Jotunheim, I
Jotun.
believe.
Thank you.
Jotun.
Uh,
Jotun.
Jotun. Demanded the hand of marriage of Freya. This was for payment of building the walls of Asgard. In order to delay him until Thor's return, Loki turned into a mare to distract his stallion named. Yeah, I can't even pronounce that.
Yeah, no,
That's
I
what
don't
Haley
know what
says.
that one says.
The stallion, the stallion fucks Loki, impregnating them after Thor killed. Can you help pronounce it
Jotun.
again? Jotun. Loki gave birth to an eight-legged horse and the fastest horse ever. So that would be interesting to see in a Marvel version of Loki. I don't know how Tom Hiddleston will feel about this.
Well, I don't know. I
You know
think
what? I
someone
think
should
he'd
write
be
a
up for
script.
it.
Yeah, I think someone should write a script where Tom Hiddleston's Loki gets pregnant, and we can see how he'd feel about doing it. And maybe it'll be a Disney Plus series.
Give us MCU Mpreg.
Yes, it's canon to Marvel Comics. There are several Marvel comics where a man gets pregnant. Bring it to the MCU.
Okay. Moving swiftly on. This is like the second week I've had something weird come up in the audience response. Last week I had to talk about dragging cloacas. It's been a
Jesus
nightmare doing
Christ.
this. And we're on our first series. Anyway, Andrew, could you read the response from Cam, please?
Okay, Cam said, Gambit has been a favorite of mine ever since I was a kid. He's part of the reason why I even got into Marvel in the first place. There is a disturbing lack of stories where he is simply accepted. For one reason or another, the X-Men, or whatever group he's tagging along with this time, seem to either keep him at arm's length or are straight up hostile towards it. Even Rogue has her moments of this. And I would just love to see a story where he's actually properly considered part of the team and none of them decide to throw his past back in his face.
A fair response.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about Gambit.
All I
Oh,
know
I
is
love
that
Gambit.
Channing Tatum was trying his hardest to get the Gambit movie off the ground, but just nothing ever came of it.
But he eventually made a name for himself.
Yeah.
Okay.
X-Men 97, episode 5, Remember Me. But that's I'm curious what their thoughts are.
Okay, we've hit
I'm a Gambit fan, and I can say that show is fantastic with how it treats Gambit.
Okay, Grant, could you please read the one from Suddenly a Cat, or Liz, as they're commonly known?
So, I've always liked Squirrel Girl, aka Doreen Green. She's one of the few holdovers of fun from Marvel's more colorful past before they turned into sad and edgy 90s characters. I think the Ryan North run of her book is the perfect encapsulation of funny and serious moments. It's funny, Squirrel Girl. Uh, there's a friend of mine who often makes the joke that technically Squirrel Girl is the most powerful character in the Marvel universe.
I mean, yeah.
And that's why Squirrel Girl hasn't been in the MCU yet. Because the MCU
The power dynamic would just completely shift.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we wouldn't
She's
be
big,
asking where's Daredevil, where's Spider-Man. With every movie, it would just be the same question: where's Squirrel Girl?
You could say
Yeah.
that the hierarchy of power in the Marvel universe
Oh
would
no,
change.
no.
Oh,
Thank you, Dwayne.
every DC fan just cringed.
Oh, okay. I mean, if a DC fan's listening to this, they might be already cringy. Kara, could you read the one from Kara?
Who's this?
No
I
clue, they just
I don't know who
appeared.
this person is. I don't know who this person is, but they seem quite cool. The Fantastic Four, easily my favorite part of Marvel. The only other characters that really come close are Bruce Banner, the Hawkeyes, and the Marvels, and an assortment of mutants. Well, I wouldn't say they have a perfect story as of yet, nor am I entirely sure what would constitute a perfect story for them, other than the usual cliff notes that most writers seem to get, such as the Fantastic Four acting like a family, etc., etc. I would say that I have a favourite. Being the massive Jack Kirby fan I am, The Coming of Galactus is easily my favourite. I love the scale of it all and how the skies turn red upon Galactus' arrival, showing the biblical influence that went into creating the character, because the whole thing's kind of built around the um, biblical end of the world. Like it's I forgot what the part of the Bible's called where the world ends. You know what I mean? It's
Noah's
a
Ark?
it's no. The oh, it doesn't matter. But the end of the world, right? It's all based around that. Um, like Revelations and all that. I think I don't know. I've never read the Bible. But
Like comic
Clearly,
book.
none of us have.
Nah.
yeah. I didn't pay attention during RE.
I
Religious
did when they
education.
brought the food out.
I I didn't, but I was still somehow the favorite of the teacher. I think it was because I was the only one that didn't yell stuff. Um, but back to what I was reading. Galactus really does feel like a benevolent god who has come down to destroy us. It's a perfect introduction to the character and a really great story for developing the four. Also, Kirby's art a as per usual. I did leave out in that what differentiates Galactus right from the get go from other villains is it's not needless destruction. It is entirely about survival. Galactus wants to survive, which I think is such an interesting place to take the character. And it raises a really interesting moral discussion because he genuinely perceives Earth as full of lower life forms that can be traded for his own survival, you know?
I also just like the concept of Galactus in terms of like a
Mm-hmm.
cosmic horror sense, because
Oh, yes.
it's like, imagine waking up one day and seeing this gigantic figure's hand reaching over, and then you slowly move into the mouth of this creature. It's just the mind boggles thinking about that. But also Jack Kirby being the absolute Giga Chad that he is, not only creating Galactus, but also the new gods in DC and Darkseid and
Yes.
Apocalypse.
Yes.
Save
the
it for the
man.
DC pod.
We have to get it in here somehow, Star.
DC,
Karen, yeah.
what? Listen, you're all coming back for the DC pod, okay?
Oh, okay, great.
Cara, have you ever
Reunion.
read the Marvels? No, Marvels.
No, I don't believe I have.
Oh, that's interesting. It's a comic book where it's the Marvel universe, but from the perspective of one guy, just one standard guy, and he's seeing the original Human Torch. He's seeing the coming of Galactus. He sees Gwen die, and it's the entire Marvel universe from this one standard pedestrian's point of view, and it's a really good book. It's got art by Alex Ross.
I was about to mention, yes, Alex Ross.
Yeah.
I have been meaning to give it a read. I've got a few things of his to read through and reread, but I will get to it eventually.
Right.
But it does sound very cool.
Well, that's the audience section wrapped up. So let's move on to the final part of the pod before we all do the goodbye bit. Connections. I still need to think of a name for this, but connections. For this pod, you have to. In fact, I'll rewind. I'll explain as per usual. So each one has to connect to the next pod. So we've done Doctor Who to D&D. We've done D&D to Marvel. This time, it's Marvel to a kind of very broad category of anime. So, If
I
you
have
all
already
have,
talked about how we could connect. Marvel's
You
done
are-
anime.
you're going to talk about it again, but this time for points.
Nobody steals my thing.
Because next week I'll be doing anime with Jake Mancuso and my husband Cass. Hopefully someone else, but it's currently pending. If you've all got something to write with or keep notes of, let me know when you're all ready to go, and I'll hit the timer. And in the finished edit, I'll have my lovely dramatic background music. Are we all ready?
Yes.
Right. Your 1 minute to name as many connections that aren't 7 degrees starts now. This is intense. I can see Andrew thinking. Andrew's the only one with a camera on during this recording. You can really see the cogs turning. I can hear the typing. There's thoughts being written. They're working hard. We're 39 seconds left. I've got to keep talking because I need something to fill this void that isn't music. It also makes it more intense and tries to throw you guys off because you're all trying to focus on information. I'm just rambling. Talking of information, 20 seconds left. You know what I should do? I should learn how to do the countdown theme. I can't do it. No, you're a few seconds off because it's now 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time is up. Okay, so have we all got some answers?
Yep.
Great.
Yep.
All
Who
right.
wants to go first? Andrew, well done.
I'm gonna go first because I am still kind of a newbie in anime, so I couldn't really think of anything. So I'll just say Florence Pugh is in The Boy and the Heron.
Okay.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I have a feeling voice actors is going to be the key one here. Grant, do you want to go next?
So I've actually gone for something different because obviously I talked about the Marvel anime earlier on, but I actually found a connection with the actual anime studio, which is Studio Madhouse. Studio Madhouse, having produced movies like Perfect Blue, Paprika. There is the Overlord series. They've done Hunter x Hunter. So yeah, lots of anime there.
Okay. Is that everything, or do you want to name the Marvel anime series again for extra points?
So the Marvel anime series that you had was like you had an X-Men animated series, you had Wolverine animated series, and you had Iron Man. There was even a Blade animated series, or anime series, I should say.
Yeah. Tara, your turn.
I hope I got the name of this right. The Marvel Disc Wars anime. I believe that's an anime, but that's one I've seen
I've heard
around.
of this one.
I've never personally watched it, but I've seen it around. There's the Marvel X-Men anime, which was just mentioned, and Fantastic Four: World's Greatest Heroes, which was the 2006 animated series for the Fantastic Four, and it's heavily anime inspired, or it has some influence from anime.
I remember that.
Huh?
I remember watching that.
It's a very good animated series. Very good. Wolverine Snicked is a 2000s comic that is very like manga inspired. And I mean, manga usually ends up adapted into anime. So I thought it was close enough. X-Men Ronin is a comic I've never read because I had issue 4 growing up, and I could never find the first 3, so I just never bothered to read it. But I had issue 4, so I know it's a real title. But it's very inspired by anime and all that. So that's it. That's everything.
Fair.
I just
I
want
looked.
to I just want to add, just for one of my answers, is not for any points. So this is not for points, but this is just because I love anime as well, and I wanted to tie into the next one. But Studio Madhouse as one of my answers. They also produced literally one of my favorite movies of all time, which is a movie called Wolf Children by Mamoru Hosoda, who is easily one of the best anime directors, who actually did the original one of the original Digimon movies, the Digimon R War game with Diaboromon, which he then literally adapted into his own movie Summer Wars, which is another banger of a movie. So yeah, shout out to Mamoru
Okay.
Hosoda.
I might give that a watch before the next one. I looked up Disc Wars because I was trying to think if it's a series I know, and yeah, no, it's the one where the Avengers become like Pokemon.
Yeah.
And I love that for them. It's such a stupid concept, but I love it.
Anime is brilliant for having some really stupid concepts, but they surprisingly work.
Yeah.
Mm.
Again, literally my favorite anime series of all time that got me into it is Yu-Gi-Oh! It's literally card games.
I need to watch that one. Technically, I can watch that one before the next pod, but that concludes the podcast. So we're on to our goodbyes. Thank God.
So long, farewell. Auf Wiedersehen, goodbye.
Well, before we head off, something I like to make sure all my guests have is a chance to plug whatever they like. I can tell you two have something to plug that might be a ring or something.
Maybe. I mean, there's the Ten Rings. Of course, there's the
There's
guy
no
called
points for connecting
The
it to
One
your
Ring.
own things.
there's a guy called the Mandarin who seems like a swell guy.
Plug your fucking work and get on with it. Can't get the staff these days.
Oh, I'm sorry. I mean, you're also part of it. You can
I
also
know, but
plug
I
it.
can't. I can't do it. I'm the host of this. It feels biased otherwise.
Okay, well, like and follow and subscribe to Inner Ring Collective on the social media and YouTube. Grant, you can do something better than this.
Yeah, so if you like watching like kind of just some nice little short films, but we also do documentaries and short factual pieces, and also just little skits and audio and little audio dramas as well. So if you're keen on listening to or watching any of that, then be sure to follow us at Inner Ring Collective on pretty much all the socials, on your YouTube, Facebook, Blue Sky, Instagram, just all them social medias. We're not as active as we would like to be sometimes, but sometimes that's life. But we have plenty in the pipeline that's coming up. Plenty.
Can confirm.
And we recently did a documentary on the local charity based in where we are. We had a private screening at our local View Cinema in November, which was fantastic. And hopefully,
Grant got my name wrong.
Yeah, Grant misspelled Star's name, but
Well, I've misspelled my own name.
Grant's misspelled his own name, so don't take it.
We've been
personally.
mispronouncing his name the whole time. It's Garnt.
For context, Grant once wrote a script and he misspelled his own name to Garnt.
Yes, and
Wow.
I've never been able to live it down.
Never. 10 years later, and it's still going strong.
You big Tom Fapper.
Anyway, it was lovely. Thank you very much.
Cameron, is there anything you want to plug before we finally wrap it up?
Not really, no.
Great. We had someone plug Greg's last week.
Oh yeah, no, big up Greg's. Great place.
Okay. You do realize that what's going to happen is that we're just manifesting a sponsorship from Greg's for
Greg's,
for
give
the
me your
podcast.
pizza. I want free food.
Here's a fun question. What's like we're all based in Scotland, so what would be kind of a place that we could recommend? So if someone were to come to Scotland, what would you recommend they go to?
Greg's.
Yes.
Greg's.
I
Greg's
am
is
going.
where I eat.
I am going to be that guy and say Edinburgh, especially during the Fringe. Like, if you're into theatre and you really want to experience theatre, then go to Edinburgh during August for the Fringe because it's mad, it's busy, but it's so exciting as well.
Hmm.
And you can go to a Marvel location because they shot a bit of Infinity War in it.
Yes,
Okay.
go on the Royal Mile.
Okay, you guys are getting way too addicted to connection set game.
No, hold on.
I think that's extra
I have
points for
another
us.
connection. I have another
Oh.
connection on my way home. On my way home from Edinburgh Pride yesterday, I got on the train to Glasgow from the platform that Wanda's on when she's fighting Proxima Midnight. So
Is it wrong as well that when I watched Infinity War, sorry, again, last point. When I was watching Infinity War, I noticed that they added extra CGI to Edinburgh Station. Like there was windows
yeah, to give it
behind-
windows.
to give
Yeah.
it windows when there was just a wall, and I was like, "That's not
Yeah.
that doesn't have windows."
My girlfriend
Yeah,
saw the
what?
green screen in Waverley Station. She didn't see any of the actors, but she just saw the big green screen set up, and that was really cool.
I'm being held hostage by my own guests. Can I end the pod now, please?
I suppose.
Suppose.
Yeah.
Right,
Spoil
okay.
Just
our
think.
fun.
Yeah, honestly.
Just
Listen.
think.
You can come back. We have more categories. We're still looking for people for sets 2, 3, and 4. God.
I'm sorry. Just let us continue. We'll get through all of them.
Anyway, this has been
No, wait.
this has been Star Power, an everything podcast. But it's not just an everything podcast. It's an everyone podcast. Peace out.
I am Groot.
If you enjoyed this episode of Star Power and Everything Podcast, then please consider subscribing or leaving a comment or maybe a like or a follow or whatever it is your platform that you use for listening to podcasts does. And don't forget to look at the link tree in the description for my socials and my Discord for all things Star Power and Beyond Stars Productions. Thanks for listening.